Hi teachers, welcome back to our channel. Did you encounter some difficulties in teaching writing? Maybe your students cannot write systematically, or your students do not have enough knowledge about the assigned topic, or probably your students are not interested in writing. If some or all of these situations happen in your class, let's add it today. This presentation will help you to solve your problem in teaching writing, not only in an English class, but it will equip you with various strategies to teach writing across the curriculum. Writing across the curriculum will be our main topic for today. It refers to the opportunity in each and every class for students to work through ideas in writing, to articulate their thinking by writing, and to polish and refine ideas in written form. It will be accomplished in jottings, quick writes, notes, and other ways of writing housed in learning logs, lab books, journals, laptops, notebooks, and all manner of other media that are vastly different from the written essay we all did in English classes. Through the presentation today, we are expected to know the true understanding of writing across the curriculum, recognize the step-by-step in writing, and to understand the different kinds of teaching instructions. This is the steps in writing. It begins with before writing activity, or it can also be called pre-writing, followed by during writing activity or drafting, and be continued with after writing activity, which consists of four elements, namely revising, editing, publishing, and evaluating. Do you want to get in-depth understanding about this? Let's investigate each step in writing one by one. Step 1. Before writing or pre-writing activity. What do we need to know about this? Pre-writing is frequently the foundation for a variety of writing, reading, thinking, and learning. It is a listing of ideas at the beginning of a learning event, and it usually happens before drafting. Actually, this is similar to TPRC in the previous chapter that we have discussed, where students were required to list everything they know about something. It is comprised of jottings, speculations, predictions, forecasts, and other compilations of ideas. To make it easy, here I present some examples of pre-writing. This is very easy, and I believe that your students can definitely do this. What are the examples of pre-writing? Let's take a look. Journals, logs, lists, diaries, emails, chat rooms, mind maps, and in one's own head. What do you think, teachers? Isn't it easy to make pre-writing? You exactly know the answer, that your students can do this. But if you are unsure, let's give a try and find the answer. The second step in writing is during writing or drafting. What do we need to know about this? Students create a new text from what they have read, seen, done, and thought about or examined, and it always happens after pre-writing. Here are some examples of drafting: laboratory reports, research papers, and biographies. How can we move or transfer the ideas from pre-writing to drafting? Do you still remember this? This is mind maps, or sometimes people just like to call it maps. This is one type of pre-writing where students put all ideas into maps, and these mind maps will help students in drafting. If we take a look here, we can see that there are so many ideas, there are so many information. And what students need to do to proceed to the next step in writing is just to organize every single ideas here into the new format of written text, like in our research papers or other kind of written text or drafting that I have presented in the previous slide. Let's move on to talk about the final step in writing process. Revising and editing generally occurs in ways idiosyncratic to each writer. Many writers like to get as much as they can on paper as rapidly as possible without any revision, while others prefer to polish their writing sentence by sentence and sometimes word by word as they go. After revising and editing the new format of written text, teacher now can encourage students to publish or to share their writing in small or large groups. Why this is important? Because this activity will provide opportunity for students to self-evaluate what they have written and the process that they have experienced during the writing process. We are done discussing the writing process. Let's now proceed to discuss about the instructional strategies for every writing process. Let's begin with the first instructional strategy that covers before, during, and after writing activity. It is known as writing workshop. The essential notion of the writing workshop is that in every classroom, time is set aside daily if possible, when everyone in the room is immersed in writing. This time is established and maintained consistently so that students can depend on its daily occurrence. The purpose of the workshop is to give students frequent, regularly scheduled opportunities to write about the subject matter of the class and their relationship to it. Chalkins in 1986 suggests real life as the content of the writing workshop. The second instructional strategy is how we can apply the writing workshop in content classroom. This is a challenge for teachers. We have to teach content and teaching writing as well. How can we manage the time? The answer to this is we are teaching content in the writing workshop. Once again, please keep in mind that we are teaching content in the writing workshop. We are doing two essential learning activities at the same time. Or probably a better way to say this is that students are learning content as they perform writing workshop activities in the classroom. And how about the time? How long will the students write? I recommend set aside 10 to 15 minutes at either the beginning of the class or at the end of the class. If it happens at the end of the class, the rule can be like everyone writes until the dismissal bell rings. Let us now discuss the instructional strategy that focuses on before and during writing activity. It is known as RAFT. R-A-F-T. R stands for role of the writer, or who are you in the writing. A stands for audience for the writer, or to whom are you writing. F stands for format of the writing, or what form will your writing take. And T stands for topic, the topic of the writing, or what are you writing about. There are 5 steps in draft. Selecting the topic is the step number 1. Students need to work in group and create a large map about the topic. Then, through the necessary process, the group will create some possible topics and choose one to be the topic of their writing. Assuming a role is the step number 2, and the assistance from teacher is needed. The teacher guides students through the process of identifying possible roles by asking each team to brainstorm as many roles as they can. Then for each role, students can ask and answer the following questions. What do I know about this role? What will I need to know? And what are some sources of information I could explore to do a good job of writing from this perspective? After exploring and answering these questions, students then can choose their roles. Step number 3 is selecting an audience. Selecting an audience follows the same patterns as selecting a role. Students use the questions they have generated and roles selected to brainstorm all the possible audience for each role. Then finally, they will choose an audience. Step number 4 is selecting a format. Shatter comments that format are more than structures. They represent different ways of looking at the word. The format must not only be appropriate to the role, audience, and topic. It must also reflect the stance and the goals of the writer. So, students need to identify what they know about each format and learn what they need to know to adopt whatever one they pick. The final step in draft is for students to bring together all the information they have gathered about the topic and format and organize it for the final written product. Here again, to be successful, they may need assistance in the form of teacher guidance. This is the example of draft after following the steps. The role is a plant, sun as an audience, thank you note as a format to write a topic, sun's role in plant's growth. The same goes to the topic Defeat COVID-19, nurse as a role, society as an audience, and request as format. The next instruction that guides students before and during writing is learning logs, or sometimes called prediction logs. They are the repository for students' observation, thinking, ideas, plans, accomplishments, procedures, and products during that unit. In learning logs, students will record everything in their spiral board. Further, they have access to it throughout the unit of study. Learning logs are business. They are filled with all manner of writing, most of which is pre-writing or drafting, but all of which has something to do with the progress of the unit under study. The key element in learning logs is teacher developed directions or prompts, and teacher helps students to focus on important aspects of the unit and guide them in planning their participation in it. Next instruction that guides students before and during writing is double entry journal, or DEJ. This is another special kind of journal since it has a unique way to help students in writing. It is divided into left-hand page and right-hand page. Left-hand page comprises of notes, drawings, observations, ideas, word clusters, and maps, while right-hand page is used for a term Vaughan called cooking. Cooking those ideas and observations after reading or learning event. So, we are done with the instructional strategy that focuses on before and during writing. It's time for us to focus only on the instruction that guides students before writing. Donna Maxim in 1990 described a process he used to guide students away from the traditional informational report writing mode and teach them how to become real researchers. She developed her instructional approach in 3 phases. Phase number 1, taking notes and developing research ideas from listening. This program begins by teaching students how to take notes without copying through the simple teaching note-taking by reading to students rather than having them do the reading themselves. The book might be fiction or non-fiction, but it should have sufficient informational content for note-taking to be relatively easy. After the reading, students are asked to record in their logs facts and information they recall from the reading and questions and speculations these facts and information generate. After each listening note-taking experience, students share their individual notes and questions with the class, and teacher leads discussion to which students speculate. Phase number 2 is reading and taking notes. After students become good at listening and taking notes, they are ready to learn reading and note-taking skills. Teacher begins this phase by distributing informational magazines to the students. Students are told not to open their magazine, but to look at the cover and generate questions they think they will find answers to on the inside. Questions are recorded in students' log. Then, students are asked to sit someplace else in the room to read their magazine for 10 minutes. After reading, they will come back to their seat and write the answer for the questions that they have generated earlier. This phase is a little bit harder, and it will take several repetitions of the exercise for students to realize that they are actually able to do this. Phase number 3 is initiating and carrying out research. As students become acquainted with various resources, they should begin recording in their logs ideas and questions that need further investigation. They will frame their research question, consider and list possible resources, and decide on the plan for the research itself. The students then launch their projects and carry them out. Another instruction that guides students before writing is websites and emails. Many students routinely seek information at websites or through email exchanges. Both of these activities represent important new kinds of pre-writing and drafting. It involves new standards for both writing and general behavior. Many students today spend considerable amounts of time gathering information on the internet. What teachers need to do is to emphasize the rules and responsibilities for internet use for class-related tasks in order to avoid telecommunication facility abuse, which might lead every one of us or our students to disciplinary action. The next instruction is writing from maps. Let's say that this is the map of your students. Encourage them to find something that really speaks to them. Then, ask them to write in any form and make it become more meaningful. This is what we call the first draft of the writing. Then finally, ask them to share with their group what they have written. This is the theoretical framework that we can draw from our discussion today. For teachers to teach writing across the curriculum, they need to know and understand the process in writing. Writing process includes before, during, and after writing. And teachers need to employ some effective instructional strategies to teach every process in writing. Writing workshop and applying writing workshop in the classroom can be used as the instruction that guides students before, during, and after writing. Draft strategy, learning logs, and double entry journals can be used to teach students or to guide students in before and during writing. While real researchers' rule for websites and emails and writing from maps can be used to teach or to guide students only in before writing. Once again, this is the theoretical framework of our discussion today. As part of our IFL, let me read from Proverb 4, verse 1. Hear ye children, the instruction of a father, and attend to know understanding. As instruction is needed to understand the way to do writing, the instruction from God through the Bible is also needed to understand God's love and God's plan in our life. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you for watching and see you again.